Hello everyone and good day. Dan Manson here. That's right, Dan the man with the plan is here to stay. Today, I'm going to be talking about that announcement that took place just a few days ago. That's right, believe it or not, Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 4 has been announced, and I figured I'd do a little video talking about it. First things first, that game was my childhood, and I am in love with that game, and I'm still in disbelief that this is real. But here I am talking about it right now with all of you. And when the game releases, I am going to be doing a video for the My Intro to series on it. And I know it's not a typical 2D fighter, but it's one of those 3D arena fighters that no one can just forget. And since I have a lot of history with it, it only works out for me. Side note, I'm also going to be covering the Storm series when Connections comes out. Now with this video, I don't want to just talk about the fact that it's announced because there's not much to say on it other than the fact that it's actually coming. It's actually coming. Hold on, this is code red, everyone. Everyone that has sticks, pick them up and get ready to square up against me because I am not going down without a fight. But there's still a few questions out there about the game that my friends have been asking me, and we've been talking about it, and I figured I'd make a video on it because I'm sure a lot of you guys want to engage in speculation with me as well. So first let's start with the number one big question that everyone wants to know: the release date. When it comes to Dragon Ball Z games, essentially they usually have a Dragon Ball Z product that releases about every year. I might be wrong on whether it's solidified or not, but either way, it's about every year or two that they release a game. And the reason why I say I think every year is because Xenoverse 2, Dragon Ball FighterZ, Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, and Super Dragon Ball World Heroes all released within a year of each other. And while it's been a while since Kakarot's come out, I'm assuming the DLC that they've been releasing has been a substitute for releasing a product every year that they can get away with. And since DLC has run out for games such as FighterZ, and then you have Kakarot and Xenoverse not being done with their DLCs yet, there's still open room for a new Dragon Ball product to come out within the next year. So truthfully, my estimate for the Budokai Tenkaichi 4 game is either going to be late next year in 2024 or early 2025. Since Xenoverse 2 released around October and both FighterZ and Kakarot released around January, that's why I give around that estimate for the game. And it also fits the whole 1 year thing, so if it's late next year, because that way they have some leeway till the end of the deadline. Now of course, all this is just complete speculation since we know absolutely nothing about the game other than the very small tidbit of footage that we saw for the game, and who knows, that might actually be all they have for the game right now. But I doubt it because I feel like they wouldn't announce the game coming out if that's all they have for the game. So I honestly kind of feel like they might have some idea for what they want to do with the characters and the stages and the story for this game, but we just don't know how far along they are with that yet. But with that out of the way, we can get into the real meat and potatoes of what I wanted to talk about in this video. That's right, we're going to be doing a character roster prediction as well as a partial stage prediction, and what content we're going to see prediction in this new game prediction. So before I dive into the character predictions and the stage predictions, I just want to talk about the story mode and what we can see in that possibly. And before we engage in story mode, I want to say that there's going to be a tournament mode possibly. Like we have to have a tournament mode. It's been in all the other games, so I mean, you gotta have tournament mode. Tournament mode's just awesome. It's fun to have a tournament, set it up with your friends, and then just win because all your friends suck and you're the best. I do hope they do an online tournament mode though, because that would be fun to see online tournaments and I can play with you guys. So yeah, on the story mode. When it comes to the Budokai Tenkaichi series, the story mode has evolved over time and has become something incredible. To start, the first game had a story mode that kind of played out with each part of the story being almost like a separate piece of film on a sheet of film, and you selected which piece of film that you would take place in, and the battle that took place in the scene would pretty much be greeted with a cutscene, a battle to the death, and then an ending cutscene. You would then have King Kai, who would narrate each saga at the beginning and end of each part. Budokai Tenkaichi 2 decided to switch up the formula a little bit, and instead of doing film, they replaced it with an open world map for you to fly around in, which is my personal favorite part of the Budokai Tenkaichi 2 story. In this quote-unquote open world map, You could take place in side quest battles and visit Baba's shop to get certain items, and it was essentially the same premise as where each location was the location in which the fight took place in canon of the series. While I did love the open world aspect of Budokai Tenkaichi 2, I think Budokai Tenkaichi 3 did the story mode the best justice possible. It went with the film sheet idea, but evolved it even further. They switched out film for scrolls, and each scroll would contain a saga, and each scroll would have like a certain number of pages, and each page would be one particular battle. For example, one battle in the Saiyan Saga scroll is just the fight against Raditz. Now let's use the Saiyan Saga as the example, where normally if you were to fight Raditz, it would be you play as Goku, fight Raditz, and then you'd beat Raditz, but it would show that Goku lost to Raditz, and then Goku would go off to hold on to Raditz for a little bit while Piccolo charges up his attack, and then you switch to Piccolo and you play Piccolo against Raditz, and then after you beat Raditz, the cutscene plays where Piccolo, oh hey, I did it, I beat him with Special Beam Cannon, which is off screen practically half the time, and then you just continue on with the story in that same formula. But in Budokai Tenkaichi 3, what they did was they handed you both Goku and Piccolo, and had you switch between the two of them during that one fight in particular. You wouldn't do an insane amount of damage while fighting them, or you won't do the normal amount of damage that you would do when fighting them. You do like a lesser amount of damage, so that way the story beats can play the same. But they also made it so that you can win the fight even if you didn't want to follow the story pattern of how it went out. But long story short, they involved clashes, cutscenes in between the fight, and a whole bunch of different things such as characters switching, characters fusing, so on and so forth, into the actual story element of everything. And it made for a lot more fun and engaging way to tell the story of Dragon Ball Z. They even included scenes such as if you're fighting, let's say, Vegeta in the Saiyan Saga. If Goku uses the Spirit Bomb, instead of just going and charging up the Spirit Bomb and throwing it at Vegeta without saying a word, he says a line like, "This is a Spirit Bomb taken from the energy of everyone in the earth," and he throws it. Like, he says specific lines that take place during the actual series, and it just makes it for a far more engaging experience, in my opinion, which is why the Budokai Tenkaichi 3 way of telling the story is my favorite. And like I said, I won't complain if they bring the open world aspect of Budokai Tenkaichi 2 into the storytelling of Budokai Tenkaichi 3 as well, because that would be absolutely breathtaking, absolutely amazing, and I think it'd be a little bit of love letter to the old Budokai Tenkaichi players. I don't know. Maybe it's just me being overly optimistic, but we'll see soon. Another thing I absolutely loved about the game was the what if scenario battles that they had, which has scenes such as what if King Vegeta helped Bardock fight against Frieza's army, or what if Devilman stood up against Metal Frieza when Frieza came to Earth, and a whole bunch of different scenarios that are completely wild and honestly would be absolutely amazing to see what they do with the super cast of characters as well. And as far as story goes, I'm hoping that it covers all the way through to Super. I know that they might want to focus more on the Super element of things, but I would honestly feel kind of let down if they didn't include at least some of the older Dragon Ball Z stuff as well. So like, I can see us getting the Z Saga, the GT sagas, the Dragon Ball saga, as well as get the new Super sagas added into the game as well. And as far as how far it would go, I can see it ending at Tournament of Power. That would be like a pretty okay-ish place to leave it off at. But my hope is that it would continue on to the current saga that's happening in the manga right now, which is the setup for Super Hero, at least. When it comes to the features of Budokai Tenkaichi, I mentioned tournament mode earlier already and how I want there to be a tournament mode. And I just want to say again how fun it would be to put tournament mode in a Dragon Ball Z game where a lot of tournaments take place. I'm just saying, bro. But I really hope that we also see a bunch of other single player modes. Like, they had like a tower mode or something like that. That was pretty fun. I think that was in Budokai 2 though. Or Budokai Tenkaichi 2, not Budokai 2. Budokai 2 is a different game. But yeah, other single player content would be amazing because I would love to see what they can come up with for the game. And I also hope they continue with the Potara system that they had, where you could equip certain characters with like Potara earrings that would give them buffs to their stats. So like, For example, you can give Chaozu extra health and extra key charge speed, or you can actually make Hercule deal actual hit stun to the people that he goes up against, which changed the game for how effective he was in battle. Then they even had these little like red Potaras, and the red Potaras were insane because they like gave insanely high stat increases for every character, and it was a true test of strength and skill if you went up against them, which I did to train myself. Alright, now time for the first big chunk of speculation, which is going to be with the stages of the Budokai Tenkaichi series. And we have a lot to think about when it comes to these stages. So going through all of Dragon Ball Z, they would like to save a lot of time on fights that took place in different locations, because face it, a lot of fights took place in very similar locations to one another. For example, the Raditz fight and the fight with Nappa versus the Z Fighters took place in essentially the same grassy field area, to where you can use the same grassy field stage to cover both those fights. Or the fight between Goku and Vegeta took place in a very similar rocky area as the fight against Androids 19 and Dr. Gero, which was also an android, which they call Android 20. So they would, let's be honest, it's safe to say that cutting corners in that aspect is perfectly fine, because oh, I'm not gonna want some big rocky formation in this area, but in this one, no, it has to be a different stage. I'm not picky like that. That type of pickiness is just a little bit too much for me. It's essentially the same place, it's essentially the same stage, and I have no real gripe with them reusing the same stage for these different fights. Like, it just makes sense. So let's go down the list to see how many stages were in each of the following Budokai Tenkaichi games, and I'm actually going to list them off too, so you guys understand what went into each stage essentially. So first we're going to start with Budokai Tenkaichi 1, which only had 11 stages, which is honestly quite a bit of stages. The 11 stages we had were Wastelands, which was your grassy area, the rocky area, which again is the rocky area, just makes it's in the name. You had Namek, the World Tournament Arena, City Ruins, which was a destroyed city. We didn't have a city put together because, let's be honest, we're going to destroy the city in a few seconds anyways in the fight, so we had them in the ruins. We had the Mountain Road, which is famously thought of for the 18 versus Super Vegeta scene. We had the Islands, we had the Cell Game Arena, we had Kami's Lookout, the Hyperbolic Time Chamber, and last but not least, we had Supreme Kai's World. All of these stages had pretty important cinematic moments in the Dragon Ball Z franchise that needed to take place in those areas, so those were the need to go to places for stages. It was a perfect way to introduce Budokai Tenkaichi to the world and get the point across about what fights took place where, and to give you a good variety on stage selection. Not to mention, an arena fighter to Budokai Tenkaichi's level had a huge diversity in the stage. The stage would in fact change how one would play on it. Well, you know, compared to 2D fighters. In Budokai Tenkaichi 2, we got a total of 17 stages. That is an increase of 6 whole stages. So, quick disclaimer about the stages. Upon further investigation, I found out that the information I had provided for the stage prediction isn't 100% accurate. Yeah, so Space wasn't an official playable stage until Budokai Tenkaichi 3, even though I said it was in Budokai Tenkaichi 2 because it was there, but just for a cutscene. So technically the amount of stage increase from 1 to 2 is 5, and from 2 to 3 is 7. So yeah, I guess we can say me doing 6 stages is the middleman and the average. So yeah, let's stick with that. Where all the previous stages I mentioned returned, and the new 6 stages that we got that were added was Space, Dying Namek, Planet, a legitimately random planet, Kame House, Glacier, and Ruined Earth. Dying Namek and Ruined Earth are being added as essentially a new mechanic where when the world got blown up, they would take place in either Earth being blown up, and now you have this tiny little platform to fight on while Earth is complete in ruins, Or in Namek's case, if you blow up Planet Namek, now you have 5 minutes until the planet destroys itself and dies and kills us all. Now, for Budokai Tenkaichi 3, they stepped it up by adding another 6 stages, so we have a pattern of 6 stages being added with each installation of the game. So basically that leaves us with 23 stages that were implemented in Budokai Tenkaichi 3. Now, when I say they had a total of 23 stages, only 6 new stages, I'm not including this little special feature that they added for some of the stages that already exist and a new stage that got added in this game as well. But I'm going to get to that feature later. First, I want to tell you what the new 6 stages were. They were Desert, King's Castle, Muscle Tower, Penguin Village, Mount Paozu, and Hell. Desert, King's Castle, Muscle Tower, Penguin Village, Mount Paozu are essentially your Dragon Ball stages to tell the story of Dragon Ball. Mount Paozu being Goku's home area, Desert being the place where they fought Yamcha, King's Castle, the king, where the king and the dog, and in Piccolo's words from Dragon Ball Z Abridged, no one wants Dragon Ball. But yeah, everyone's familiar with Hell because that's where Gogeta debuted. But yeah, like I said, those are the 6 stages that got added, and the new treatment that some of the stages got were a lighting change, which was very easy to implement, and I hope to see it return since it's just a lighting change. But you know, if they don't do it, it's whatever. So let's go ahead and break down each of these lighting changes for each of the stages. So the Planet stage received an evening time zone along with the World Tournament stage and the Mountain Road stage, and the Cell Games Arena stage received a noon time setting. So now the 3 that I mentioned before have noon and evening settings, and Planet has night and evening. The following 4 stages, however, received noon, evening, and night settings, which were Rocky Area, Wasteland, City Ruins, and the newly added Desert. So seeing that they wanted to diversify some of the stages by adding these little daylight saving zones, it made it seem like they have more stages that they had. It might make me think that they are going to do the same for this game, but since it's just a simple lighting change, I'm open to it as long as they still add actual stages to the game as well. But like I said, we're going to be guessing what the new 6 stages, and yes, I'm going with 6 since 6 has been the number that has been added from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3. It just makes sense that they'll stay with that number for 3 to 4 as well. If we get more than 6, I'm not going to complain, but this is my guess for the 6 stages that we're going to be getting if we bring it over to Budokai Tenkaichi 4. So for stages, first things first, we're going to get right into the Tournament of Power arena because I just think that's a guaranteed spot. One could say that they could just use the World Tournament stage and give it a nighttime setting for the Tournament of Power, but I think that the Tournament of Power stage is too great of a location and holds too much of significance to the series that it deserves its own stage. I would also add a cliffside type of stage for Resurrection F battle against Frieza because, I mean, it's kind of like Mountain Road, but it has a few differences that just would really help benefit it over giving it just the nighttime setting. Next stage I would give is the Capsule Corp stage for the Battle of Gods battle, and it just makes sense to put Capsule Corp because it's a staple to the series, especially in Super. A lot of scenes take place in Capsule Corp, and yeah, it's just the staple of Super at this point. Another guaranteed spot I think would be Beerus's planet, because Beerus's planet has this entirely new atmosphere to it, and it also has a lot of significant moments to the series as well, so it's also another staple that I would add to the game. These last 2 stages I thought about got a little bit tricky because I couldn't think of big changes to stages that could really leave an impact. But I came up with the Red Ribbon Army area from the superhero movie because I believe that if we go that far into the game in the story, then that stage is a must. And then I had my throwaway, which I just couldn't think of a 6th one no matter how much I racked my brain. So I just ended up picking the Universe 6 versus Universe 7 tournament area because, again, while we could just use World Tournament since it also has ring outs in there, it just feels like it would have a different atmosphere and environment, and I just feel like the different tone that they can give it would really help diversify it from the World Tournament stage. However, if they were to go ahead and add in a bunch of minor differences in stages, which again, I don't think they will, I can see them giving City Ruins a green 10 atmosphere in honor for the destroyed City Ruins from the Goku Black Saga. I can also see them going ahead and actually making an actual Planet Tuffle from GT, and if need be, I can see them making an alternate islands for some reason for the Goku vs 17 fight from Dragon Ball Super, even though it was just a single fight. And maybe we can get a new planet stage for a certain location in the manga, you know? I'm not gonna spoil anything, but I'm gonna spoil things when I get to the characters, so I'll warn you guys before I get into the spoilers, don't worry. But again, these are just minor changes to already existing stages, and if they wanted to go ahead with it, they can. These are my ideas for if they go that route. But my set in stone options would make the total stage roster count for Budokai Tenkaichi 4 29, but I can see them pushing it to 30 if they wanted to. And yeah, I'm also not counting noon, evening, night cycles of stages, because they could totally do that for Capsule Corp, because Capsule Corp takes place in noon, evening, nighttime in Dragon Ball Super. So yeah. Now it's time for the hardest and longest part of the video, which includes the most thought and most depth into each selection and idea, the characters. Once again, we're going to be counting the number of each one of these characters that existed in Budokai Tenkaichi 1, Budokai Tenkaichi 2, and of course Budokai Tenkaichi 3. When I count these characters, I'm going to try to not use fusions and transformations as characters, even though they are technically different characters, being fusions and transformations do give them some different specials and abilities and stuff. I'm not going to count them. I'm counting them based on the number of character slots that there were for each game. Budokai Tenkaichi 1 counted fusions as separate characters, and I think Budokai Tenkaichi 2 counted them as separate characters as well. But once Budokai Tenkaichi 3 came around, they stopped counting fusions as different characters and they were just sub-menus. So anything that appears in a sub-menu in any of the games will not be counted, at least for this character list that I make. So for example, Baby Vegeta, Super Baby 1, Super Baby 2, and Golden Great Ape is not going to be counted as 4 characters. It's all going to be counted as 1 character because it's Baby, who has access to all those different forms. I will, however, count Goku Early, Goku Mid, and Goku End as 3 different characters because they all are different character slots in Budokai Tenkaichi 3. Budokai Tenkaichi 1 had 56 characters in its initial roster, which is a great start to the franchise, and they would eventually move on to Budokai Tenkaichi 2, which would have 73 characters, but if you own the Nintendo Wii version, you'd have an exclusive 5 characters, so you'd actually have access to 78 characters. But then moving on to Budokai Tenkaichi 3, you would have all the exclusives that were in Budokai Tenkaichi 2's Wii version onto your console, so you technically have access to an extra 5. But long story short, you had 97 characters, which does not include fusions or transformations, since the fusions were once again part of the subcategories now, fusions weren't involved in the calculations. So going from Budokai Tenkaichi 1 to 2, you had 17 extra fighters, and going from Budokai Tenkaichi 2 to 3, you would have 24 characters. And this is of course only counting the PlayStation version, I'm not counting the Wii versions of the games. So of course, transitioning from Budokai 2 to 3, that's an increase of 7 extra characters added onto the game from 1 to 2. So that would possibly mean if we add 7 to that, then we could get 31 characters in the next game. But 31 is a lot, so instead I just averaged out the extra characters from 1 to 2 and from 2 to 3, and got about 20 and a half. So for argument's sake, let's say 21 to be optimistic, which brings me to my first character, Android 21. Okay, but in all seriousness, I'm going to make a legitimate list of characters that I think could make it into Budokai Tenkaichi 4. However, I went ahead and I made a tier list of sorts to show who I think has a greater chance of making it into the game from Super than other characters, and I'd like to show that to you guys now. Now, I wrote a script for this, and this script was about 6,000 words, and I have 2,000 words left, and I feel like I'm just going to toss that all out if I just go straight to the tier list, but I do want to say some of my points that I came up with in the script that I wrote. So what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to combine both of them, and yeah, we're going to jump to the tier list now. So yeah, here we are with my tier list, and this is obviously who I think is going to make it into the game. This is my true honest feelings of who I think will make it in the game. No doubt in my mind has to go to Goku. Like pretty much anyone in this list, I will argue for them being in the game and it making total perfect sense. And if you disagree, I will actually have a normal conversation with you about that, because honestly, I feel like these characters are going to make it as long as we go as far as superhero, because these characters are at the bottom of the list. These characters should be down here too, based on how far we go into the series. So like, it should be Moro and Miris, then Granola, Jesus Christ, then Granola and Gas, then Gammas 1, 2, and Cell Max, because it just depends on if we get to these sagas in the game, then we'll get these characters in there. But other than that, there's no real reason for me to explain why these characters are going to make it into the game. Gohan and Piccolo are at the top of good chance, because I feel like they could get new forms, like a whole new entire character slot. Gohan with the whole Beast Gohan existing thing, I can see him getting more support in that direction. So like maybe a transformation based on like Super Saiyan, him transforming to Ultimate, and then Ultimate to Beast would absolutely be insane to see him transform into Beast as a transformation. Piccolo, I can see him getting his Ultimate form, his orange form, and then possibly even going Giant, since Giant forms exist in the game, which is why I definitely see Moro being a possibility, considering I feel like his Ultimate would be interesting to see, at least. He doesn't technically have a giant form, but you know what I mean. If you've seen this, if you know, you know. Zamasu is only a maybe, because I mean, let's be honest, I feel like Zamasu can get in the game easily. I mean, not a maybe, but good chance, because Zamasu is kind of like watered down Goku Black. I mean, Zamasu is cool and all, but the reason you don't see any like thing like Fuse Zamasu and Kefla down here is because they're transformations, they're fusions. So there'll be like the subcategory. The reason why I have Trunks down here is because I feel like for the Goku Black saga of things, Trunks will just get the Super Saiyan 2 / Super Saiyan Rage, whatever you want to call it, mode. I feel like they're just going to add that on and add in his specials in that form. And with Bardock, I can see them maybe giving him the whole Super Saiyan Bardock transformation that we have now, or maybe even giving him like a new form, like, or color or costume based on the Super movie with Broly. Same thing with Gogeta and Vegito, they're just going to get their blue forms, and for Gogeta, he'll get a base form. So yeah, going back down the list, I can see 17 getting a Dragon Ball Super 17 look and moveset. Jocko, he's just Jocko. Who wouldn't want to put Jocko in there? We have Hercule in the game. Why can we not have Jocko? Ribrianne, because she actually did pose a pretty good threat during the tournament. Anime-wise, I'm not too familiar with the manga Tournament of Power. 7-3, he had some pretty cool abilities, so it would be cool to see him. Bergamo, specifically Bergamo and not his brothers, because I feel like his brothers could make it in if they wanted to go that route to add the characters in as well. But far as I know, they could just add them in as like their ultimate trio de danger thing. Same thing with Ribrianne and her two friends, Kakunza and Rosie. I feel like they're all interchangeable, or these two are interchangeable. So I feel like these two are more likely to be excluded from the game than included. You have Master Roshi, because I feel like we're getting a new Master Roshi based on his super. If not a new Master Roshi with, like, you know, his new abilities like the Mafuba, so on and so forth. I can definitely see us getting a new costume of him with his tank top on. Same thing with Tien. I just have Tien a lot lower because he doesn't really do much in the tournament, so yeah, you can't really do much with that. Also, Gohan and Piccolo did a lot in the tournament, so I feel like they deserve new movesets as well. Same thing with 17. Dispo, he's with these guys. It's just that he's not as impactful, I would say. I mean, yeah, he fought against Gohan and Frieza together, but that's why he's in good chance and not no doubt in my mind. Kale is... She didn't quite get the urge to fight until partway through the tournament, which is probably why I'm leaning more towards good chance and not no doubt in my mind. But there's no doubt in my mind that Kefla is going to be in the game. So I guess I could put Kale up here as well. Yeah. Now for maybes, I have Android 21. I couldn't find frick, what was her name? Banyu. Yep, Banyu, that's her name. Is there anything inappropriate on the screen? Yes, there is. I couldn't find a picture of Banyu in the tier list, so I do want to say that Banyu, I can see her making it in. Just because I really want to see some original characters, some new original characters make it in, so that's why I have Banyu and 21 listed here. And this isn't Lab Coat 21, but I can see us getting a Lab Coat 21 that can transform into the Majin 21 form, as well as her getting colors such as the Evil 21 as well. Frost is a maybe just because he's Frost. That's it. I have nothing really to say about him other than the fact that he exists. So I can see him getting in. It's just more of a maybe, him getting in above some of these heavier hitters. Same thing with Tagomo. He's an interesting character to put in. It's just so many heavy hitters up top. 21's only in maybe because I don't know if they want to go the original character route, but if they do, which I really hope they do, I want to see 21. I want to see not this, Banyu. So, alright, the not likely list are just characters. Like I said, these 4 could be interesting. It's just that these characters are a lot more iconic than these. Then you have Vados and Champa. I mean, we're getting Beerus and Whis. I don't think we'll need a Vados who would play almost exactly like Whis, and we won't need a Champa who will probably play almost exactly like Beerus. But hey, it's their game. They can do what they want. We have characters that play almost identical to one another, so why not put them in? And then there's Bergamo, who is extremely not likely, but I have him at the top because I really want him in, because I feel like it would be pretty interesting to see how they put him in the game. If they need more characters, it's just a list of characters that I personally want to see. Not because of anything like, oh, they're my favorite characters. No, just I really feel like they would have unique movesets. Like Tarble. I feel like putting Tarble in the game is long overdue. Ocean Shinron would be a good pick, honestly. We have Ice, we have Nova, we have Omega. Why not add in a 4th one, you know, just because. That's the only reason I have her in there. I just want a 4th Shadow Dragon. Lord Chilled, if we get Super Saiyan Bardock, I want Lord Chilled, just because. This guy, frick, what was his name? I don't remember his name or his name, but they're from the same universe, and I feel like both of these two, especially him, he has that whole Power Ranger vibe, and I feel like he would be really fun and cool to play with. And this guy, he's a giant, and yeah, I kind of want more giant characters in the game, because I feel like giant characters are kind of cool. Baby Pan, hear me out. Pan is awesome. Enough said. Monaka, hear me out. Monaka is a joke character like Hercule. Enough said. These two are costume or color change, pretty much because I don't think we have enough for them to be full-on characters. Yeah, they could make full-on new characters for their super variants, which is very easy to do, especially for an arena fighter. Well, that's just fun. All the noise wants to suddenly happen. That's great. Oh my God. So yeah, I hope this sounds better. So So yeah, these two are interchangeable because yeah, they could have something interesting happen for their movesets, but in the meantime, I don't think these two would probably get anything other than new costumes or color changes for their characters. And then down here I have Super Dragon Ball Heroes, just because I saw some Dragon Ball Heroes characters in this list, and I thought, hey, it'd be pretty cool to have these characters in, you know? Fu, love that guy. I actually love Fu, he's pretty awesome. Mira, Toa, Mira transformed and stuff, Cumber. It'd be pretty cool to see what other characters get added and new transformations and stuff if they want to throw Dragon Ball Heroes into the mix. And yeah, he's not getting in because he's him. He's not getting in because I don't like him. Zeno, too strong. Grand Prix, too strong. And yeah, enough said. Long story short, this video is a long video. And like, it took a lot of scripting and everything, and I don't even know where I started. I don't remember where I'm ending. And I feel like it was a good experience to actually make a prediction video like this. But I'm actually going to do another prediction video. I'm going to update it when we get more information on the game, because this is just my we have no knowledge on the game prediction list. Once we get a little bit more information, I'm going to do another prediction list, which will probably be a little bit more realistic and actually have a definitive number of characters that I can see us getting. And yeah, I did want to bring up some Dragon Ball superhero characters. I mean, not superhero, Dragon Ball Heroes characters into the game. However, that's a huge can of worms. There's infinite possibilities when it comes to that. Trunks can go Super Saiyan God, and then there's like a bunch of other characters that we have. And yeah, it's just way too much to process when I know nothing about the game. So I figured I'd probably save that for if we see any Dragon Ball Heroes stuff get added to Budokai Tenkaichi 4. But yeah, thank you for sticking with me to the end of the video. If you made it to the end of the video, go ahead and leave me a comment down below and let me know what you're excited for when it comes to Budokai Tenkaichi 4. And let me know if you played the Budokai Tenkaichi games before as a kid, or, you know, what have you. And yeah, with all that being said, I hope you all have a great day. Have a fantastic week. And remember, may your heart be your guiding key.